Today's topic of discussion is eco-criticism. Eco-criticism or green studies. Simply defined, eco-criticism is the study of the relationship between literature and the physical environment, as said by Cheryl Glotfelty. But should we call it eco-criticism or green studies? Both terms are used to denote a critical approach which began in the USA in the late 1980s and in the United Kingdom in the early 1990s. And since it is still an emergent movement, it is worth briefly setting out its institutional history to date. Eco-criticism as a concept first arose in the late 1970s at meetings of the WLA, the Western Literature Association, a body whose field of interest is the literature of the American West. Eco-criticism, as it now exists in the USA, takes its literary bearings from three major 19th century American writers whose work celebrates nature, the life force, and the wilderness as manifested in America, these being Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller, and Henry David Thoreau. All three were members of the group of New England writers, essayists, and philosophers known collectively as the Transcendentalists, the first major literary movement in America to achieve cultural independence from Europe models. Emerson's first short book, Nature, first published anonymously in 1836, is a reflective rather than philosophical essay on the impact upon him of the natural world, often voiced in words of powerfully dramatic directness. Crossing a bare common in snow puddles at twilight under a clouded sky, without having in my thoughts any occurrence of special good fortune, I have enjoyed a perfect exhilaration. I am glad to the brink of fear. These lines are taken from chapter 1. Fuller's first book was Summer on the Lakes during 1843, which is a powerfully written journal of her encounter with the American landscape at large after a period as the first woman student at Harvard. Thoreau Waldo, World's Classics 1999, is perhaps the classic account of dropping out of modern life and seeking to renew the self by a return to nature. This is certainly a book which has always exerted a strong effect on the attitudes of its readers. These three books can be seen as the foundational works of American encountered, eco-centered writing. The existence of two distinct national variants of the ecological approach suggests how British cultural materialism and American new historicism are clearly linked in their approaches and aims, but differ in emphasis and ancestry. Generally, the preferred American term is eco-criticism, whereas green studies is frequently used in the UK, and there is perhaps a tendency for the American writing to be celebratory in tone, whereas the British variant tends to be more minatory, that is, it seeks to warn us of environmental threats emanating from governmental, industrial, commercial, and new colonial force. The point repeatedly made by eco-critics is that for the first time in human history, no true wilderness any longer exists on the planet, for every region is affected by global warming and other anthropocentric problems, such as toxic waste and nuclear fallout. Our sense of these problems will vary, but we surely need to concede at least that issues of gender, race, and class cannot any longer exhaust the range of concerns that literature and criticism ought to have, though social ecologists and ecofeminists will rightly seek to blend such concerns with an ecologically driven program and outlook, seeking to contribute to rectifying injustices in the areas of gender, race, and class is a praiseworthy aim for critics and theorists to have, but it isn't sensible to ignore the fact that making a difference in this presupposes that we can manage to avoid environmental catastrophe. An eco-critical reading of a literary text is simply one which is some way incorporates a consideration of the kind of issues and concerns we have just been discussing, but there is no universally accepted model that we have merely to learn and apply. In 1915, the aging Thomas Hardy, overwhelmed by a sense of the collapse of civilized values as the Great War dragged on, wrote a brief poem called In Time of the Breaking of Nations. The poem goes as this: Only a man harrowing clods in a slow silent walk, with an old horse that stumbles and nods, half asleep as they stalk. Only thin smoke without flame from the heaps of couch grass, yet this will go onward the same, though dynasties pass. Yonder a maid and her white come whispering by, war's annals will cloud into night ere their story die. As dynasties pass and nations are broken in the onslaught, the poet desperately looks round him for an example of immutability, seeking to reassure himself that there is something permanent which will go onward the same forever in spite of the catastrophe of world war, and the something he chooses is that most commonplace manifestation of low-tech agricultural practice, a plowman working a field with a horse-drawn plow, a man harrowing clods in a slow, silent walk. Eco-criticism investigates relationships between literature and the physical environment. It provides an earth-centered approach to literary studies. It draws attention to the human and non-human world, particularly to connections between self, society, nature, and text. Earlier theories in literary and cultural studies focus on issues of class, race, gender, region, are criteria and subjects of critical analysis. The late 20th century has woken up to a new threat: ecological disaster. The most important environmental problems that humankind faces as a whole are nuclear war, depletion of valuable natural resources, population explosion, and so many factors. Numerous green movements have sprung up all over the world, and some have even gained representations in the governments. The essential assumptions, ideas, and methods as follows. Eco-critics believe that human culture is related to the physical world. Eco-criticism assumes that all life forms are interlinked. Eco-criticism expands the notion of the world to include the entire ecosphere. Moreover, there is a definite link between nature and culture, where the literary treatment, representation, and thematization of land and nature influence actions on the land. Joseph Mika used the term literary ecology to refer to the study of biological themes and relationships which appear in literary works. William Reuckert is believed to have coined the term eco-criticism in 1978, which he defines as the application of ecology and ecological concepts to the study of literature. Thank you.